space station hung in the darkness like a metal flower. Its arms stretched out in all directions, each one bigger than most ships. General Sarah Chen stood at the main window, watching alien vessels approach. She had seen many things in her 40 years of military service, but nothing quite like this. The Kethmoran ships did not look like ships at all. They looked alive. Each one pulsed with strange lights that moved under what seemed like skin instead of metal. The biggest ship was the size of a small moon. It moved through space like a giant sea creature swimming through dark water. "They sure know how to make an entrance," said Admiral Marcus Rodriguez. He stood next to General Chen, his arms crossed. His face showed no fear, only curiosity. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked up behind them. She held a tablet with notes about the meeting. "The Kethmoran Empire has agreed to this neutral meeting. They say they want to discuss boundaries and peaceful relations." General Chen turned around. "And you believe them?" "I believe in trying," Elena said. "This is the first time anyone has made contact with them directly. All we know comes from long-range scans and rumors from trader ships." The three humans had spent months preparing for this moment. The Kethmoran Empire controlled hundreds of star systems. They had never been defeated in battle. They had never even lost a single planet. Every species that met them either joined them willingly or disappeared completely. "Contact from the lead ship," said a voice from the communication system. "They are requesting permission to dock." "Granted," Elena said, "and activate all recording systems. Whatever happens here, Earth needs to see it." The docking process took 2 hours. The alien ship did not connect to the station like normal ships. Instead, it grew something like a tube that attached to the station's hull. The tube looked organic, like a plant root or an animal's limb. Elena, Sarah, and Marcus waited in the main conference room. The room had been built for meetings between different species. It had adjustable lighting, atmosphere controls, and furniture that could change shape. They had tried to prepare for anything. What they were not prepared for was the sound. When the Kethmorans entered, their footsteps rang like crystal bells. Each alien stood 12 feet tall. Their bodies looked like living gemstones, with multiple arms and legs that moved in perfect coordination. Strange lights flowed under their transparent skin like colored water. The lead alien walked to the center of the room. When he spoke, his voice came from speakers that had grown from the walls during the docking process. "I am High Stratarch Vexthul of the Kethmoran Empire. I speak for the Eternal Empress and the infinite fleets that serve her will." Elena stood up. "Welcome to Harmony Station. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Government. These are General Chen and Admiral Rodriguez of our military forces." Vexthul's lights pulsed in what might have been acknowledgement. "We come to deliver terms. Your species has expanded into 17 star systems. These systems now border our territory. This cannot be allowed." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances but said nothing. Elena kept her diplomatic smile in place. "We are willing to discuss boundaries," Elena said. "Perhaps we can find systems that work for both our peoples." "There is no discussion," Vexthul said. The lights in his body flashed brighter. "There are only terms. Submit to the Empire and become our servants. Your species will be allowed to live. Your technology will be absorbed. Your worlds will be added to our collection." "And if we refuse?" Sarah asked. She kept her voice calm and professional. The other Kethmorans moved to stand behind their leader. Their lights began to pulse in unison, creating a hypnotic pattern. "If you refuse," Vexthul said, "you will join the others who made that choice." The Zalak refused. Their homeworld is now a tomb. The hive mind of Kepler refused. "We consumed their queen and scattered their drones." The crystalline builders of Vega refused. "We melted their cities and used the metal to build our ships." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "You guys really like the whole doom and gloom speech, don't you?" Vexthul's lights flickered in what might have been confusion. "I do not understand your response. I have just described the fate of your species. If you choose defiance..." "Oh, we heard you," Sarah said. Please, continue. This is fascinating. Elena shot warning looks at both generals, but they ignored her. Vexthul straightened to his full height. The other Kethmorans spread out around the room. The temperature dropped even more, and a low humming filled the air. Perhaps you do not understand, Vexthul said. Allow me to speak in the traditional manner of our kind. He raised all 6 of his arms. The lights in his body began to move faster, creating spiral patterns. The humming grew louder, becoming a deep vibration that the humans could feel in their bones. Other Kethmorans added their voices to create a harmony that was both beautiful and terrifying. When Vexthul spoke, his voice came from multiple speakers around the room. It echoed and mixed with itself, creating layers of sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Tremble before the endless swarm, his voice boomed. We are legion. We are infinite. We consume worlds. We have devoured the light of 10,000 suns. We are the eternal hunger that knows no satisfaction. Before us, mountains bow and oceans flee. We are death walking among the stars. The speech went on for several minutes. Vexthul described cosmic destruction, endless armies, and the futility of resistance. His voice grew louder and more dramatic with each sentence. The other aliens swayed and hummed, adding to the effect. Elena sat frozen, unsure how to respond to such an overwhelming display. She looked at her military advisors for guidance. That was when she heard it. A small sound at first, barely audible over the alien war cry. A sort of snorting noise, like someone trying not to sneeze. Then Admiral Rodriguez lost control completely. He doubled over in his chair, laughing so hard that tears ran down his face. General Chen tried to maintain her composure for about 3 more seconds. Then she too began to laugh. Not a polite chuckle or a nervous giggle, but deep, uncontrolled laughter that shook her whole body. The Kethmoran war cry faltered and stopped. Vexthul's lights flickered in rapid, chaotic patterns. His voice, when it came, sounded uncertain for the first time. Why do you make these sounds? This is not the proper response to inevitable doom. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes and tried to catch her breath. I'm sorry, she gasped. It's just... Oh God, Marcus. Did you hear the part about mountains bowing? The oceans fleeing was my favorite, Marcus wheezed. Do oceans have legs? How exactly does an ocean flee? Vexthul took a step backward. Explain this behavior. Are you suffering from some kind of mental breakdown caused by terror? Sarah stood up, still smiling. Oh, you sweet summer child, she said, her voice warm with something that might have been pity. You have no idea what you've just walked into. Vexthul's crystalline body flashed with rapid, confused patterns. In 50,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to the imperial battle cry with laughter, fear, despair, rage, even madness. These were normal, but this strange barking sound that came from the human mouths made no sense. You must explain, he demanded. What is the meaning of this? This noise you make? Admiral Rodriguez wiped his eyes and took a deep breath. Sorry about that, big guy. It's just that every time someone declares themselves infinite or unstoppable, they usually end up dead pretty quickly. That is impossible, Vexthul said. The Empire has endured for 50,000 of your years. We have conquered 847 star systems. We have never known defeat. General Chen activated her tablet and projected a holographic display into the air above the conference table. Let me show you something from our history. Images appeared in the air. Pictures of human wars, leaders, and empires that had risen and fallen. This man, Sarah said, pointing to a figure in a strange uniform, declared that his empire would last 1,000 years. It lasted exactly 12. This one over here said he would rule all of Europe forever. He died alone on a tiny island. This empire claimed to be eternal and ruled by the gods themselves. It collapsed when a few dozen men with horses showed up. Marcus joined in, clearly enjoying himself. Oh, And this one's my favorite. They built a wall and said it would keep their enemies out forever. It worked great right up until someone figured out that walls have gates. Vexthul studied the images with growing alarm. These are isolated examples. Surely your own species has created lasting empires. With CU. With CU. Nope, Sarah said cheerfully. The longest human empire lasted about 600 years. And even that one fell apart eventually. We're really bad at the whole eternal rule thing, but we're excellent at breaking other people's eternal rule. The other Kethmorans moved closer to their leader, their lights pulsing in agitated patterns. One of them spoke in their musical language. Vexthul's response sounded sharp and worried. Elena decided it was time to try diplomacy again. What my colleagues are trying to explain is that humans have a different perspective on warfare and conquest. We've learned that nothing truly lasts forever. But you are a young species, Vexthul said. We have records showing that your people only reached space travel recently. How can you speak with such confidence about war? Because, Marcus said, we've been practicing on each other for thousands of years. Sarah brought up new images. These showed human weapons, battles, and military strategies throughout history. See, the thing about humans is that we never really stop fighting. Even when we're not fighting other species, we fight each other. We've turned warfare into an art form. We study it, we teach it, we make games about it. She showed them images from human war films and video games. The Kethmorans watched in horrified fascination as humans on screen destroyed cities, sacrificed themselves in explosions, and celebrated violence with music and special effects. Your species enjoys warfare? Vexthul asked. Oh yes, Marcus said. Some of our best entertainment involves people killing each other in creative ways. We have entire industries built around making fake wars for people to watch. This is madness. One of the other Kethmorans said in heavily accented English. Exactly, Sarah said with a bright smile. Now you're getting it. Vexthul was quiet for a long moment. His lights cycled through colors that had not appeared before. Deep purples and reds that seemed to indicate distress. In all our encounters with other species, he said slowly, we have never met one that celebrates its own capacity for violence. That's probably why you always win, Elena said, finally understanding what her military advisors were doing. Other species see your big ships and scary speeches and think about how to avoid fighting you. Humans see your big ships and scary speeches and start thinking about how to blow them up. But surely, Vexthul said, you must recognize the impossibility of victory. Our bioships are grown, not built. They heal themselves. They adapt to enemy weapons. Our warrior organisms are bred for combat from birth. Marcus leaned forward with interest. Organic technology? That's fascinating. How do they handle computer viruses? Computer viruses? You know, programs designed to attack other programs. We humans love creating those things. It's like a hobby for some of our kids. The lights in Vexthul's body flickered rapidly. Your offspring create weapons? Well, they think they're making pranks, Sarah said. But yes, human children regularly break into supposedly secure computer systems for fun. It's how we know our security is working, when the kids can't crack it anymore. Elena watched the Kethmorans exchange what looked like worried glances. The alien delegation was clearly not expecting this conversation. There seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding here, Elena said diplomatically. The Kethmoran Empire appears to believe that intimidation will make humanity submit. But intimidation actually has the opposite effect on humans. Quote, what do you mean? Vexthul asked. Sarah answered with another grin. The bigger and scarier you make yourselves look, the more excited we get about the challenge of taking you down. This is true, Marcus added. In our military academies, we have a saying, the only thing better than impossible odds is impossible odds with a really arrogant enemy. Vexthul turned to consult with his companions. They spoke in their musical language for several minutes, their lights flashing in complex patterns. Finally, he turned back to the humans. We require time to process this information. Your species appears to be different from our previous encounters. Oh, we're definitely different, Sarah said. The question is, what are you going to do about it? We will return to our fleet and consult with the Empress. But be warned. The Empire does not accept challenges to its authority. If you will not submit, you will be destroyed. Well, Marcus said as he stood up, that should be fun. Elena quickly stepped in. What Admiral Rodriguez means is that we look forward to further negotiations. But Vexthul was studying Marcus with what looked like deep concern. You are eager for battle? Let's just say it's been 73 years since we've had a proper war, Marcus replied. The troops are getting restless. The Kethmorans left the station much faster than they had arrived. Their biotube disconnected with what sounded almost like a panicked snap. As soon as they were gone, Elena turned to her military advisors. What the hell was that about? Psychological warfare, Sarah said simply. They came here expecting us to be terrified. Instead, we showed them that their whole strategy is based on intimidating species that think like they do. And now, Marcus walked back to the window, watching the alien ships move away. Now they go back to their fleet and tell their Empress that they've found a species of crazy people who think warfare is entertainment. Will they attack? Elena asked. Sarah joined Marcus at the window. Oh, absolutely. They can't back down now without looking weak. But they'll attack, while feeling uncertain for the first time in 50,000 years. And that gives us an advantage? Elena, Marcus said softly. Uncertainty is what humans do best. We've been living with it so long that we've learned to turn it into a weapon. In the distance, the Kethmoran fleet was gathering. More bioships arrived every hour, each one larger and more intimidating than the last. Well, Elena said, watching the alien armada grow. I hope you two know what you're doing. Sarah smiled the same fierce smile she had worn through 3 decades of human conflicts. Trust me, Elena. We've been preparing for this fight our entire species' history. We just didn't know it yet. As the alien fleet reached critical mass and began moving toward human space, Sarah was already making calls to Earth Command. For the first time in nearly a century, humanity was going to war. And for the first time in 50,000 years, the Kethmoran Empire was about to learn what happened when an unstoppable force met an impossible people. High Stratarch Vexthul stood in the center of his flagship's command chamber, surrounded by floating displays that showed the human territories. The bioluminescent walls pulsed with the steady rhythm of the ship's living systems. Everything was precise, ordered, beautiful. Everything except the problem of humanity. Report, he commanded. Substratarch Kelmore approached, her crystalline form shifting through nervous color patterns. The humans have mobilized their fleets, High One. But their behavior remains unusual. Explain. They are converting civilian ships into military vessels. Cargo haulers are being fitted with weapons. Passenger liners are being turned into troop transports. Even recreational boats are being armed. Vexthul's lights flickered with confusion. This is inefficient. Why do they not use proper warships? They are using proper warships as well, Kelmore said. But they seem to believe that more ships of any kind are better than fewer ships of the correct kind. Another officer approached. High One. We have intercepted human communications. Their military academies are teaching courses called Creative Insanity and Chaos Theory in Battle. What do these terms mean? We are not certain. Vexthul turned to study the tactical displays. The Kethmoran fleet was assembled in perfect formation, 5,000 bioships arranged in the traditional predator swarm pattern that had conquered nearly 900 worlds. Each ship knew its exact position and role. Each warrior organism understood its function. The human fleet appeared to be scattered randomly across dozens of star systems with no apparent pattern or purpose. Perhaps they are simply disorganized, suggested another officer. No, Vexthul said quietly. I begin to suspect that chaos is their organization. Meanwhile, in the human colony system of New Manitoba, chaos was indeed being organized. General Chen stood in the command center of the converted mining station that now served as Forward Base Alpha. Screens around her showed the controlled madness that humanity called military preparation. "Status report on Operation Honey Badger," she requested. Colonel Jackson consulted his tablet. "All civilian conversions are ahead of schedule. The luxury cruise ship Starlight Princess is now equipped with 47 missile tubes and a ram prow made from titanium mining equipment. Excellent. What about the teenagers? They've formed something they're calling the Youth Corps. Apparently, they've been training on military simulation games for years and want to help with the real thing. Let them. Their reflexes are better than most of our pilots anyway." A young communications officer looked up from her station. "General, we're receiving a transmission from the outer colonies. The people on New Manitoba want to know if they should evacuate." General Chen thought for a moment. "Tell them evacuation is available for anyone who wants it. But also tell them that anyone who stays gets to help build the traps." "Traps? Oh yes," Chen said with a smile. "If the aliens want to attack human colonies, they're going to learn why humans have never been successfully invaded by anyone." 3 days later, the Keth Moran Advanced Scout Force reached New Manitoba. 200 bioships, carrying 50,000 warrior organisms, approached the small agricultural colony that should have been an easy target. Sub-Commander Yexatal led the assault from the lead bioship. According to Imperial intelligence, the planet contained 3 million human civilians with minimal defenses. It should be conquered within hours. The first sign that something was wrong came when the planetary defense platforms opened fire. There were no planetary defense platforms in the intelligence reports. "How did they construct military installations so quickly?" Yextal demanded. His tactical officer studied the readings. "Sub-Commander, these are not military installations. They appear to be atmospheric processors that have been modified to shoot plasma instead of processing air. That is impossible. Atmospheric processors cannot be weaponized." The humans seemed to disagree. The bioships easily avoided the improvised weapons and began their landing assault. Thousands of warrior organisms descended toward the planet's surface in drop pods that looked like giant seeds. They landed in the main colonial settlement and found nobody. The town was empty except for hastily written signs that said things like, "Welcome to Manitoba. Population. You're about to find out. And free alien. BBQ. Today. Bring your own aliens." Yextal's forces spread out to search the abandoned buildings. They found more signs. Warning. Humans at play. Danger. Improvised explosives. And, if you can read this, you're too close. The first explosion came from a grocery store that turned out to be filled with fertilizer bombs. The second explosion came from the school, which had been converted into a giant booby trap using chemistry lab equipment. The third explosion came from the retirement home, where the elderly residents had spent 3 days building what they cheerfully called the mother of all pipe bombs. As Yextal's forces tried to regroup, humans began appearing from everywhere and nowhere. They popped out of sewers, dropped from trees, emerged from fake rocks, and climbed out of holes that hadn't been there moments before. The humans were armed with everything imaginable, and some things that shouldn't have been possible to imagine. Farming equipment had been turned into weapons. Kitchen knives were attached to hover bikes. Someone had mounted a military-grade laser on a child's wagon. Yextal watched in horror as a group of human teenagers used jet-powered skateboards to ram explosive mining charges into his warriors. An elderly human grandmother took down 3 of his best soldiers using knitting needles and homemade napalm. "This is not how warfare is conducted," he radioed to his fleet. The response came from an unexpected source. A human voice broadcasting on their military frequency. "You're right," said a cheerful female voice. "This isn't warfare. This is a Manitoba Saturday night. And you guys are the entertainment. Thank you for watching. And we can Syrians allers. We having that sireling talk to I. We having 42 thousands. You're right," said a cheerful female voice. The voice belonged to Mayor Susan Mackenzie, a 70-year-old former Earth military engineer who had retired to Manitoba for the peace and quiet. "Attention alien visitors," she continued. "You've just learned Lesson 1 about attacking human colonies. We don't have armies. We have communities. And communities fight differently than armies. Yextal tried to rally his forces, but the humans had turned the entire colony into a three-dimensional battlefield. They attacked from above, below, and from directions that didn't seem to exist until the attacks came. Sub-Commander, his tactical officer, reported, "We are losing warriors faster than we are gaining ground." The humans seem to have no fear of death. Impossible. All living beings fear death. Not these ones. I have recorded 17 separate incidents of humans sacrificing themselves to eliminate small numbers of our forces. The mathematics make no sense. A new human voice came over the radio, this one belonging to a teenage boy. "Hey, alien dudes, my name's Kevin, and I just want you to know that I'm about to crash my dad's hover truck into your dropship. This is for taking my PlayStation." The explosion that followed destroyed an entire Kethmaran landing craft. "Sir," the tactical officer said quietly, "I am beginning to understand why no species has ever successfully invaded Earth." Yextal made the decision to retreat. It was the first time in Kethmaran military history that a force had withdrawn from a planet with only civilian inhabitants. As his ships pulled back from New Manitoba, the humans broadcast one final message: "Thanks for visiting Manitoba. Come back anytime. We'll be ready." Yexthul received Sub-Commander Yextal's report in stunned silence. A force of 50,000 elite warriors had been defeated by 3 million farmers, retirees, and teenagers. "How many humans did we eliminate?" he asked. "Approximately 12,000. "And our losses?" 37,000 warriors, plus most of the equipment, and 6 landing ships. Vexthul's lights went completely dark for a moment. "They sacrificed 12,000 of their own people to inflict casualties on us?" "It appears so. But High One, I do not believe they considered it a sacrifice. They seemed to view it as an investment." "An investment in what?" "In teaching us fear." Vexthul turned to stare at the displays, showing human territories. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. "Prepare the full fleet for assault," he ordered. "But modify our approach. These humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. We must adapt." "How do we adapt to chaos, High One?" It was a good question. Vexthul had no good answer. In the human territories, General Chen received the battle report from New Manitoba with grim satisfaction. The colonists had performed exactly as expected, like humans. "Casualties?" she asked. "Lower than projected. The civilians were more effective than anticipated." "Of course they were. They were fighting for their homes." Admiral Rodriguez looked up from his planning table. "Sarah, the main alien fleet is moving. They'll reach the Centauri system in 6 days. Sarah, 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 Sarah." "Good. Are you sure about this plan?" "It's completely insane." General Chen smiled. "Marcus, that's the point. The aliens are expecting military logic. We're going to give them human logic instead." "Is there a difference?" "Oh yes. Military logic is about winning battles. Human logic is about making sure the other guy regrets starting them." The Centauri system had been humanity's first interstellar colony, a symbol of human expansion into the galaxy. Now it would become the testing ground for everything that made humans human. High Stratarch Vexthul stood in his command chamber, watching the tactical displays show his fleet's approach. 5,000 bioships moved in perfect formation, their living hulls pulsing with coordinated bioluminescent patterns. Each ship knew its exact role in the upcoming battle. "Analysis of human fleet composition," he requested. 847 vessels, reported his tactical officer. However, only 112 are military ships. The remainder appear to be converted civilian craft. "Weakness? Unknown, High One. The converted vessels mount weapons that should not be possible given their original design parameters." Vexthul studied the human formation. If it could be called a formation at all. The human ships were scattered across the system, with no apparent pattern. Some clustered around planets, others drifted in empty space, and a few seemed to be moving in completely random directions. "They have no coordination," he observed. That appears to be correct. We have intercepted their communications. Each ship seems to be operating independently. Then they will be destroyed easily. But even as Vex Thul said this, he remembered the laughter of the human generals. Something about this felt wrong. Aboard the human command ship Defiance, Admiral Rodriguez was having the time of his life. All ships. This is command. Remember, people. There is no plan, because plans are for species that think logically. We are going to do what humans do best, make it up as we go along. The response came from hundreds of ships at once, creating a chaos of voices that would have been impossible for any other species to coordinate. Roger that. Command, this is the cruise ship party time. We've replaced our swimming pool with a missile launcher. Command, this is Garbage Truck 7. We're loaded with space mines disguised as trash. Admiral, this is the school ship Learning is Fun. We've got 300 teenagers with jury-rigged fighter craft, and absolutely no fear of death. General Chen stood next to Rodriguez, watching the displays. Marcus, are you sure this will work? Sarah, I have no idea if this will work. That's what makes it perfect. The battle began when the Kethmoran fleet opened fire with their bioplasma weapons. Massive beams of living energy lanced out toward the human ships, designed to disable and capture rather than destroy. The human response was immediate and completely unexpected. Instead of returning fire or attempting to dodge, half the human fleet began broadcasting simultaneously. Every ship transmitted something different. Music, television shows, radio chatter, internet memes, and random conversations. The Kethmoran bioships, designed to process and understand enemy communications, were suddenly flooded with more information than they could handle. Analysis indicates human ships are singing, reported a confused Kethmoran officer. Vex Thul listened to the chaos pouring through his ship's communication systems. Human voices mixed with something called heavy metal music, comedy shows, and cooking programs. Block their transmissions, he ordered. We cannot. They are using our own bio-neural networks to amplify the signals. The more we try to block them, the louder they become. Meanwhile, the human ships that weren't broadcasting were doing something even more confusing. They were fleeing. But not in an organized retreat. Each ship seemed to be running in a completely different direction. Pursue and destroy the fleeing vessels, Vex Thul commanded. His bioships broke formation to chase the scattering humans. This was exactly what the Kethmoran fleet had been designed for. Hunting down isolated prey. What they discovered was that the fleeing human ships were leading them into traps. The converted cruise ship Princess of the Stars led a group of bioships into an asteroid field, where it suddenly revealed that its swimming pools had been converted into mine launchers. Hundreds of explosive devices, designed by retired human engineers for fun, detonated around the pursuing aliens. The garbage hauler New Frontier led another group into what appeared to be empty space, then released its cargo, space mines disguised as floating debris. The Kethmoran ships, programmed to ignore harmless debris, flew directly into the explosives. But the worst surprise came from the school ship Learning is Fun. 300 human teenagers, raised on video games and action movies, launched themselves at the alien fleet in one-person fighters that had been built in shop class. They flew their improvised craft with a combination of skill and complete disregard for personal safety that horrified the logical Kethmorans. Command, this is Jenny from Learning is Fun. I'm going to ram my ship into their biggest gun because my boyfriend dared me to. This is Mike. I just figured out that if I crash my fighter into their shield generator, it makes awesome explosions. Sarah here. I'm going to see if I can fly through their engine exhaust without dying. Wish me luck. Vex Thul watched in horror as human children sacrificed their lives to inflict minimal damage on his fleet. The mathematics made no sense. Each human death eliminated perhaps one or two Kethmoran warriors. It was tactically insignificant, but somehow, it was working. High One, his tactical officer reported. Our bioships are beginning to malfunction. The constant chaos is overloading their processing capabilities. Explain. Our ships are designed to adapt to enemy tactics, but the humans have no tactics to adapt to. Every ship does something different. every attack is unique. Our bio-neural networks cannot find patterns to counter. The situation grew worse when General Chen revealed the true purpose of the battle. All ships, she broadcast on an open channel, initiate Operation Rickroll. Every human ship in the system began broadcasting the same ancient song simultaneously. The music was terrible by almost any standard, but it was accompanied by something that made the Keth-Moran bioships actively malfunction. Human laughter. Thousands of humans, facing certain death in a hopeless battle, began laughing as they listened to the ridiculous song. They laughed as they fired their weapons. They laughed as they rammed their ships into alien vessels. They laughed as they died. The sound of human laughter, transmitted through the Keth-Moran bio-neural network, had an effect that no one had anticipated. The alien ships began to shut down. "What is happening?" Vexthul demanded. "The bio-neural networks are confused. They cannot process the concept of laughter in the face of death. It violates every survival algorithm they possess. Override the networks. Fight manually." But it was too late. The Keth-Moran bioships, designed to be more efficient than any mechanical vessel, had become dependent on their living computer systems. Without the bio-neural networks, they were helpless. Human ships swarmed around the disabled alien vessels like sharks around wounded whales. The converted garbage trucks released their final surprises, not mines, but human teenagers with cutting tools who began slicing their way into alien hulls. "This is Kevin from Trash Hauler 6, came a cheerful young voice. "I'm cutting my way into an alien ship. This is way cooler than summer vacation." Vexthul realized that his infinite fleet was being destroyed by an enemy that treated warfare like a game. "All ships retreat," he ordered. But even retreat proved difficult. The humans had turned every escape route into another trap. Ships that tried to flee found themselves chased by elderly humans in modified passenger liners, who rammed the alien vessels while singing songs from their youth. "This is Captain Martha Henderson of the Senior Center Special," came one transmission. "I'm 78 years old, and I'm gonna ram you bug-eyed monsters with my bingo ship." The explosion that followed took out 3 Keth-Moran cruisers. By the time the surviving alien ships escaped the Centauri system, Vexthul had lost over half his fleet. The humans had lost nearly as many ships, but their casualties seemed to mean nothing to them. "Hi, one," his tactical officer said quietly. "The humans are broadcasting a message. Display it." General Chen's face appeared on the screen, smiling with what looked like genuine warmth. "Hi, Stratarch Vexthul. This is General Chen of the Human Defense Force. I wanted to thank you for the most fun we've had in decades. It's been 73 years since humanity fought a proper war, and you've reminded us why we enjoy it so much." She paused, and her smile grew wider. "Oh, and Vexthul? This was just a warm-up. If you want to see what happens when humans really try to hurt someone, please feel free to attack Earth. We have some new weapons we've been dying to test." The transmission ended with the sound of human laughter. Vexthul stared at the empty screen, his light cycling through colors that indicated deep confusion and growing fear. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Keth-Moran Empire had been forced to retreat, and the humans thought it was funny. The news of humanity's victory at Centauri spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication could carry it. For 50,000 years, the Keth-Moran Empire had been considered unstoppable. Species across hundreds of star systems had lived in fear of their bioships and their infinite armies. Now, that fear was replaced by something unprecedented. Hope. The first rebellion started in the Vega system, where the crystalline builders had been enslaved for 3,000 years. When they heard that humans had defeated a Keth-Moran fleet by laughing at it, they decided to try something they had never attempted before: fighting back. The Builders' Rebellion was not particularly successful from a military standpoint, but it was successful in ways that mattered more. For the first time in millennia, a conquered species had refused to stay conquered. Similar uprisings began in dozens of other systems. The Keth-Moran Empire, which had maintained order through the promise of inevitable victory, found itself fighting wars on multiple fronts against species that had learned something important from humanity. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon against tyranny was the refusal to be intimidated. High Stratarch Vexthul found himself in an impossible position. His empress demanded an explanation for the defeat at Centauri. His military advisors insisted that humanity must be crushed to restore imperial authority. But Vex Thul had seen something in that battle that his advisors had missed. The humans had not just won, they had enjoyed winning. After weeks of consideration, Vex Thul made a decision that shocked the Empire. He requested another diplomatic meeting with humanity. This time, the meeting took place on Earth itself, in the same building where humans had once signed treaties to end their own world wars. Ambassador Elena Vasquez had suggested the location, thinking it might help the aliens understand human history better. Vex Thul arrived with a much smaller delegation than before. His bioship was impressive, but not intimidating. When he entered the negotiation room, his first words were not a threat or a demand. "General Chen," he said, "I require your assistance in understanding something." Sarah looked up from her notes, surprised. "What would you like to understand?" "How your species fights without hatred." The question hung in the air for a moment. Elena, Marcus, and Sarah exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "In all our previous conquests, species fought us with fear, desperation, or rage. But your people fought us with joy. They laughed as they died. They treated warfare as entertainment. I do not understand how this is possible." Sarah leaned back in her chair. "Vex Thul, can I ask you something? In 50,000 years of conquest, have you ever lost anyone you cared about?" The alien's lights flickered in confusion. "I do not understand the question. Have you ever had friends die in battle? Family members killed in war? Kethmorans do not form individual attachments. We serve the Empire as one collective entity." "That's why you don't understand," Marcus said quietly. "Humans fight for each other. Every person who died at Centauri was fighting to protect someone they loved. When you do that, death becomes less important than purpose." Elena added, "And humans have learned something over thousands of years of warfare. If you're going to die anyway, you might as well have fun doing it." Vex Thul's lights cycled through patterns they had never seen before. "Your species willingly sacrifices individuals for collective survival?" "No," Sarah said. "Our species willingly sacrifices for individual survival. Each person who died at Centauri was fighting to save specific people they cared about. The collective survival was just a bonus. This makes no logical sense." "Exactly," Marcus said with a grin. "Logic is what your species uses. Humans use something different." "What?" "Love," Elena said simply. "And stubbornness. And really bad jokes." Vex Thul was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke again. "The Empire is collapsing. 12 systems have declared independence. Others are actively rebelling. Our authority, built on the promise of inevitable victory, has been broken." "We're sorry about that," Sarah said, though she didn't sound particularly sorry. "No," Vex Thul said, "you are not. And perhaps that is for the best." He stood up, his full height no longer intimidating but somehow dignified. "I have come to propose an alliance." The humans looked at each other in surprise. "An alliance?" Elena asked. "The galaxy is large. There are threats beyond our current understanding. The Kethmoran Empire has technology and knowledge accumulated over 50,000 years. Humanity has something we lack, the ability to find hope in hopeless situations." "What exactly are you proposing?" Sarah asked. "Transform the Empire into something new. Not a collection of conquered species, but a voluntary alliance of different peoples. The Kethmorans will contribute our technology and organizational abilities. Humans will contribute their chaos." Marcus laughed. "You want us to teach other species how to be unpredictable?" "Yes, but more than that. You will teach them how to fight without hatred, how to find joy in struggle, and how to laugh at threats that seem overwhelming." Elena leaned forward. "And in return?" "In return, we will share 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge about the galaxy, technologies, star maps, information about other species, and other threats." Sarah considered the proposal. "You realize that if we do this, the galaxy is going to become a much more chaotic place?" I am beginning to understand that chaos is not the same as destruction. Your species has shown that chaos can be creative. 6 months later, the Galactic Alliance held its first joint military exercise. Ships from dozens of species participated, including both Kethmaran biovessels and human-converted cruise liners. The exercise was supposed to test coordinated defense against a simulated threat. Instead, it became the galaxy's first interspecies comedy show. Admiral Rodriguez, now appointed as the Alliance's first supreme commander of creative warfare, watched from his flagship as alien species attempted to implement human tactical doctrine. The crystalline builders had mounted disco balls on their war machines and were attacking to the beat of human music. The aquatic depths dwellers had learned to use their natural camouflage to play pranks on enemy forces during battle. Even the normally serious Kethmarans had begun incorporating humor into their battle communications. "Command, this is Bioship Harmony," came a transmission in Vex Thul's now familiar voice. "We are approaching the target, preparing to unleash the power of..." What is the human phrase? Jazz hands. The mock battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Species that had fought each other for millennia worked together with a coordination born not of rigid discipline, but of shared laughter. General Chen, now serving as the Alliance's Director of Impossible Strategies, received regular reports about the changes spreading through galactic civilization. Art was becoming more creative as species learned to value individual expression. Music was becoming more diverse as cultures shared their unique sounds. Even diplomacy was becoming more effective as species learned to use humor to diffuse tensions. But the most important change came 5 years after the Battle of Centauri. A new threat emerged from the far edge of the galaxy. The Devourers, a species of energy beings that consumed entire star systems for food. They had destroyed everything in their path, leaving empty space behind them. When the Devourers sent their war leader to demand the surrender of the Galactic Alliance, the scene was very familiar. The alien entity, glowing with the power of 1,000 dead stars, materialized in the Alliance Council chamber. It spoke with a voice like the death of suns. "Primitive beings, you stand before the infinite hunger of the Devourers. We have consumed the light of entire galaxies. We are the end of all things. Submit to your fate, and your deaths will be swift." The council chamber was filled with representatives from 43 different species. Humans, Kethmorans, crystalline builders, aquatic depths dwellers, and dozens of others. They all looked at each other, and then they all began to laugh. The Devourer's energy form flickered with confusion. "Why do you make these sounds? Do you not understand that you face annihilation?" General Chen, now elderly but still with the same fierce smile, stood up slowly. "Oh, friend," she said, her voice warm with familiar amusement. "You just made the classic mistake." "What mistake?" "You threatened someone who's learned to think like a human." The laughter in the council chamber grew louder. Species that had never laughed before the human alliance were now laughing together at a threat that should have terrified them. The Devourer began to back away, its energy form wavering. "What? What are you people?" "We," said Vex Thul, rising to his full height, but now speaking with something that sounded almost like joy, "are the Galactic Alliance. We are everyone who has ever been told they were too small to matter, too weak to fight, or too different to belong. And," added Admiral Rodriguez from his position at the tactical display, "we are really looking forward to showing you what we've learned about fighting impossible odds." The Devourer fled the council chamber, but the Alliance was already mobilizing. Ships from every member species began converging on the threatened systems, carrying weapons that combined Kethmaran biotechnology with human creativity. But more importantly, they carried something that had never existed in the galaxy before the humans arrived. The unshakable belief that no threat was too large to be defeated by people working together with hope, humor, and an absolute refusal to be intimidated. As the Alliance fleet prepared to face the Devourers, General Chen received one final message that summed up everything humanity had brought to the galaxy. It came from a young Kethmaran warrior who had learned human tactics. "General Chen, this is Zexdal of the bioship Laughter in the Dark. We are approaching the enemy fleet. They are very large and very scary. We are very excited to blow them up. Thank you for teaching us that fear is just another word for fun. Chen smiled as she watched the greatest fleet in galactic history move toward battle. Not with grim determination, but with the kind of joy that only came from knowing that no matter how dark things got, someone would find a way to make them better. And somewhere in the distance, the sound of laughter echoed across the stars.